All right. 8. So, yeah, grab wherever you like. And
It's gonna get cozy.
it is going to be cozy. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Did you check the levels? Have we already checked the levels, Sean? Have you accounted for the fact that I speak louder than everybody else?
All right, folks, we're getting started. The conversation in the kitchen right now, if you're not here with us, is riveting and very thought-provoking. There's lots of good questions being asked and hopefully answered.
Who has to come up
So
here?
many.
Let's call them out.
Monsieur Henschel, will you join us? Chief Architect of Flow, would love to have you.
Alex
Sir?
Henschel, come on down. So just so everyone knows, Alex was one of the first people that was added to the team once we decided we needed to build Flow because we needed somebody who was smart.
That's true, yeah.
And because he has a German accent, we assumed he was smart. Fortunately for us, it turned out he was. He actually is trained in quantum computing as a PhD, and so we hired him to do machine learning and then asked him to design a blockchain, as one does. So welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Well, it's all math, right? Blockchain, machine learning, quantum physics, so yes.
Finance, tokenomics.
Exactly.
Math,
Exactly.
more math. All right, Bastian Mueller.
All right, let's bring up Bastian.
Bastian,
Mr. Müller. Bastian B, because apparently we can't say his name properly in English. So Bastian, of course, has formal training, master's degree in programming languages. He was the designer of Cadence and implementer of Cadence. We, of course, originally hired him as a Mac developer because no one needs to hire anyone who knows how to do programming languages. And it wasn't until after that we started building Flow that we actually tapped him to do the stuff it was his calling. So fun fact about Cadence that always makes Bastian blush is that I originally called it BPL, and I let him believe it stood for Bamboo Programming Language because the code name was Bamboo. For the Flow project, but in my mind, it was always Bastian's programming language. So if anyone has ever used Cadence, you've used Bastian's programming language.
In our hearts, it's always Bastian's programming language. All right, next up, we have Con Zhang, the man himself, master of mainnet. Come on down.
Hey there, Con. So Con, of course, is our, fearless leader. I've never met anyone who laughs in the face of danger quite like Con. And by danger, I mean the mainnet melting down, the CEO calling us in the middle of the night, threatening to fire us all. He never actually threatened to fire us all, but his tone of voice threatened to fire us all. Let's put it that way. But Con was always there, always a stalwart. He joined the team more recently than the others, but at this point in time, I don't have to think about the engineering team because I just know that Con's got it under control.
Absolutely.
Is anybody else coming up?
There sure is. Another Zhang, Leo Zhang, is going to be joining us. Come on up.
Leo
And despite
Zhang.
the name, they're not brothers.
Yes, that's right. So Leo was, of course, has been with Dapper Labs for a very long time, and with Axiom Zen before that. You must be coming up on your 10-year anniversary as well, right? Yeah, almost. Yeah. So I joined Axiom Zen in the fall, and Leo joined in the winter. So we started at the same time. So we've been working together for a very long time. And Leo, you were on Flow, and then off Flow, and then on Flow again, right? Yeah, so he's done a bunch of work for Dapper Wallet as well. You were also one of the key developers on Cheese Wizards, which was a very cool game where Leo and I worked on smart contracts together and learned to hate Solidity with such a deep passion that we forced Bastian to come up with a whole new programming language.
Master of everything, Leo, everyone. And last but absolutely not least, Jeff Doyle.
Oh.
Get up here, Jeff. Jeff was, or no, you, by all means.
No. Please, I want to hear what you would say about Jeff.
Jeff is our in-house Flow client library expert. He was the prodigy of a gentleman who definitely masterminded FCL, and Jeff joined us as an intern and now has been 4 years strong in his journey and bringing FCL to life, really defining that, shaping it, managing community merges, which will be a topic for another day, and you can see in his eyes that's not one for now. But Jeff has really changed the wallet game on Flow, and we are so grateful to have him. Welcome, buddy. All right, here we all are. Thank you, everybody who's joining us online and in person. It's so wonderful to have you all here. Really grateful that you're taking the time. This is a fireside panel with the founders of Flow, some of the founders of Flow. So the folks that you see up here, sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Whoops. Hi, I'm Lane. I am one of the co-founders. Deet and I.
I'll do you.
Oh, gosh.
So this is Lane. Lane was working on Flow before it was called Flow, before it was Flow, before we even knew we wanted to build a blockchain. So
And it was a scaling problem.
Lane was a co-op student at Axiom Zen. We worked together building a profit button for a Turkish company.
Button. Yep.
And then she graduated. She went off and she worked for a company in Hong Kong. And I heard that she was thinking of coming back to Canada. So I sent her an email and I said, "Hey, I need you to help with this blockchain stuff." So she came back, and we were just ready to like really pull the trigger on CryptoKitties. So we'd been bouncing around this idea of CryptoKitties for a couple of months, but Lane joined us at exactly the right time to sort of make it happen for real. And so she came in one day with cinnamon buns and a strong attitude, and she said, "We're gonna make this kitty game the best thing that ever happened." And so we made CryptoKitties. The world burned down around us, or mostly Ethereum, I guess. And so she and I, because we'd been working on CryptoKitties together, she and I went looking off for what could be the new blockchain, and what we found was no good blockchain.
Not a single one.
And so we reluctantly made the decision we should try and build our own, and that's why all these people came along for the ride.
Indeed, but we didn't do now I'm realizing we didn't introduce you either, so now I get to do it. So this
Go
is
nuts.
Dieter Shirley, everyone, creator of ERC 721, co-founder of Flow, chief architect of Flow, mastermind of so many details in CryptoKitties, Cheese Wizards, Flow. Worked for Apple prior to all of this, and that design thinking definitely drove so much of our well, we'll get into this more in the panel, but Flow definitely has always been fighting for relevancy and for products that really change the game for the kinds of experiences that users are going to have. And Apple definitely did that, and I think you really brought that energy early on. So Deet is our resident. Well, you got to work with Jobs at one point, you were saying. So
No, I saw him in the
There was
parking
a-
lot. Let's
you
be
said
honest.
he looked at your stuff.
One of my jobs at Apple was working on Keynote, and so the software called Keynote, which is their sort of PowerPoint equivalent. Steve Jobs was using that for a full 2 years before it was released to the public, and so we were more or less, and it was secret, so no one else was using it. It was like this 30-person development team building software for one person so that he could run his presentations. So it was really cool to have my code used by him. I don't think he knew who I was.
But a hell of a thing to bring to Flow. So Deet is the co-creator, the mind behind so many of the brilliant design decisions that were made here, and certainly the person that, as he mentioned, brought all of us together, because I wouldn't be here if Deet hadn't asked me to come help him out. So thank you all so much for being here. It's so wonderful to have you. The Flow team has been working for 5 years now, I guess it is, on bringing this to reality, and today we get to ask them the hard, nitty-gritty questions of what that was like, some insights of where we've been, where this industry is going, and what you should do about it, and where the opportunity is for folks who are maybe just entering the space or who have been here a while and want to break through the noise a little bit. So let's get into it. Are you ready? Yes, this side of the room? Yeah, all right, okay. First question, we aren't starting it easy. This is the name of the game at Flow. What was the most significant, and I'm going to toss it to anybody first, what's the most significant hurdle you overcame in the last 5-ish years building Flow, technically and mentally?
I actually have two. So I have two in mind. I'd say the first one's obviously getting the first bit of code down. I think we must have threw away just an insane amount of code over and over, right? Just thinking about how to really start a project that is a blockchain, right? Like that kind of idea is very daunting overall, because when you have a distributed system, kind of figuring out where to start is always a little bit difficult. So for me, mentally, I think that'd be probably the first thing that comes to mind. In terms of technically, I have a different answer, I think. I think it's probably about a year in or so when NBA Top Shot kind of really took off. And it was at that time basically running on what was a prototype of Flow. So from a performance point of view, it performed somewhat like a prototype, which means that it struggled a lot with kind of keeping up with the demands of a, then kind of budding project like NBA Top Shot. So kind of really scrambling and trying to fit in what felt like years of development in like 3 months. So I think that was very difficult. And coming up with not only the actual, actual work to improve the performance, but the technical design changes necessary at that time, because it was still early in the life cycle for the blockchain. So trying to really push the performance so early was kind of a tough challenge, considering a lot of like the supporting, I guess, code was not even quite there yet. So building that out plus improving performance was very technically challenging, I think. I feel like Leo probably have a similar answer. But.
My turn? Okay. Yeah, so for me, I think implementing the consensus algorithm was quite challenging to me. Yes, I think we built probably the first industry or production-ready proof of stake consensus algorithm. And at that time, I think both Bitcoin and Ethereum was running on proof of work. And we are the first at building a production quality consensus algorithm. Yeah, that is quite challenging because for me, my first time developing like distributed software, and especially for Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus algorithm. And yeah, it took me quite some effort to understand this Byzantine fault-tolerant part. And when we put it into production and debugging it, and debugging a distributed system was also very challenging, but we learned so much from it, from debugging it, from the challenge it, and we slowly improving it from how to discover the details, understand the issues, and improving the details. And later on, I think we also come up with improved the versions. And yeah, I think I'm very proud that we come up with this great implementation of the consensus algorithm proof of stake. I'm really proud that we can say this is our this is the best consensus algorithm in the blockchain industry.
If you do say so yourself. We can skip over us. Yeah, do you want to jump in, Alex?
Oh God. Like the most challenging, technically challenging thing for over the last 5 years, I think, are the last 5 years. I mean, there's just like one technical challenge after the other. Maybe sort of more on a personal anecdote very early on is, so we'd been spending many hours in like meeting rooms back in our office downtown, like iterating over the design, right? Like, we really wanted to build a system which is truly scalable, right? Where every scaling bottleneck we had an answer to. Maybe not sort of figured out up to the last bits and pieces, but at least a conceptual answer, right? And so we'd spend so many hours, and then I remember that I think Lane was it who came to me and said, okay, so we need this written down as a scientific paper. Alex, you know how to write scientific papers. Make it happen. So, and I'm like, Oh God. and so the first paper turned out to be only 30 pages, right? And then we gave that to various people who were interested in attack. And half a year later, I think Dieter wanted the second paper. He's like, though they have questions about verifiability, since you're separating consensus from compute, consensus can't enforce correctness of the execution results anymore. And people don't understand how we do that. And so that was the second paper, another 60 pages. And then the third paper was another 60 pages. So that was certainly a technically very challenging aspect, because we had to walk this fine line between not writing down everything, specifically not writing down all the stuff we hadn't sort of figured out to the last detail, but sort of present scientifically solid evidence that the thing we had in our brains was more than just a fluke. Right, that you could really mathematically prove that this thing would hold up to any arbitrary malicious attacks, right? That's what a blockchain is about, what Leo said, this sort of Byzantine fault tolerant. You're not writing code for a thing sort of, oh, I'm getting my expected input, and if I don't get my expected input, I just do something and the human will debug that. No, you're writing a system which is supposed to handle any arbitrary malicious input. So for any line of code, you're gonna ask yourself this question: what is gonna happen if I get a broken input? And and sort of writing this down in a scientific language that people can understand, and you actually have a solid argument. That was certainly quite stressful, several months. So that's I guess my answer to technically as well as mentally.
Writing what was that, 150 pages?
Yeah,
Did you say
overall,
150
roughly, yeah.
pages
Mhm.
of techno? I can't imagine why that would be challenging. Oh my gosh. For the record, I don't think that I went to Alex and said, make it happen.
No.
I hope I didn't.
No, you certainly didn't, because like Lane always has it in a very nice way, and you come out with that warm feeling of understanding why it's necessary. So.
Thanks, buddy. Jeff, what was technically and mentally most difficult to overcome for you in the last, I guess in this case, fewer years?
I think the answer, I think most technically and most stressful moment was when Lane came to, at the time, James and I, and said, hey, we have a problem. We have this blockchain, but we don't have any wallets on it right now. And it's one of those critical pieces that you have to have a functioning ecosystem. And I remember at the time I worked under this staff developer named James, and he was wonderful. But that relationship at the time was, I was the junior dev and he was the staff engineer, and what that ended up looking like was him getting me to do all the work and him kind of doing a lot of the fun brainstorming, which was great, but I ended up writing a lot of code over and over and over and over and over and over again. And I remember writing it, I remember getting to the point where we got on a call, James and I, and James said to me, he was like, hey Jeff, we're getting to the point where there's this wallet called Blockdo, and they're going to launch, and we think they're going to come out sometime soon. And I said, great, cool, and I went on my way, and I kept writing code, and the next day he came back, and he said, Jeff, they finished, they're out, and there was a wallet ready for me. And I remember being so stressed trying to get us to that point where we could actually have the library and the protocol in the state where they could build, and then seeing it actually come together was really wonderful. So yeah, getting to that point and then seeing it was pretty rewarding and also pretty stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a huge one, because it was indeed a giant ecosystem gap, and that is characteristic of many of the, I'll give Bastian a chance to think maybe, but definitely characteristic of the big technical challenges to overcome were like just an absolutely unfathomable amount of work to do in negative time. And Jeff described one, and then Alex described one, and then Con described one of those, and every single one of us has this story, and Leo, and like we all have this story of just an absolutely insurmountable amount of work that truly seems like you will not overcome, and then you do, or Blockdo appears, Sean appears from the side and just, saves you from everything. But I wanted to draw attention to that because many of you who are starting projects right now probably are in this headspace of like, oh my God, it's overwhelming, there's too much, where do I start? And the answer is anywhere. So Deet and I, this was one of my most challenging moments maybe, or many most challenging moments. As was just articulated, I was always showing up with challenging moments. And there were more decisions to make than there was possibly time to gather inputs for. And so we resorted to this beautiful object. This is a magic 8-ball, and we all know this. On the other side, it tells fortunes. And so for a while, Deet and I joked about using this to make decisions. And then there came a time when it was it really does get to this point of a coin toss, especially when you're at an impasse. And that was probably the toughest mental challenge, is like sometimes you really are in a place with another team member or community member, and you both care so much, and you both like really want it to work. And you just can't get to the same page of like, where do we start? And you flip a coin, basically. And so the magic 8-ball became an answer to this question that startups often face, which is like, just literally, where do we start? And like, when all things seem equal, which one do you pick? And sometimes the answer is like, just literally either of them, so that you get more information, and then you get a chance to make different choices. And it's important to know the difference between one and two-way doors in that exercise, but definitely there was like a lot of really tough decisions that we just were like, well, we'll just have to find out what happens when we do it one way, I guess. Bastian, what was your most challenging mental and technical moment?
I think the question was also lessons learned. I think one lesson learned was sort of, it's pretty hard to write a language, and just in general, but then blockchain is a bit of a different beast. Like sort of Alex mentioned, like this kind of constantly just being worried about malicious input and considering all the security issues that could pop up is like not just double the amount of work, but like triple or orders of magnitude more work. Yeah, just that realization was like sort of during the development increasing, and yeah, like definitely underestimated how much work that would be.
Dieter?
Well, I'm very lucky. One of the nice things about being a leader of a team like this is whenever I have a technical problem, I just go to one of them. So most of the technical problems I got to offload to other people. I think the mentally the biggest thing is just dealing with the scale of it all. I think any project that I've ever built, it's always more complex than you think. And we knew Flow was going to be complex when we got started. And we predicted that we needed 50 engineers to build the whole thing, and we launched with fewer than 30. And so it was a real scramble to get enough done that it was worth calling done. But it really was, and it's credit to this amazing team. So, but yeah, it's tough knowing that. Every part of the team doesn't have what they need, including me, to do what we want to do, and finding that balance between good enough so that we can create value for people, and versus all the things that we know we want to do, and so yeah, it's been quite a ride.
Oh, has it ever? Yeah, big takeaways from this question. Technically, the name of the game in startups is like you're always going to have more questions to solve and answer than you have answers for, especially in the world of Web3. So this space is certainly unique in the number of times that you will solve truly unique problems. You will run up against a problem that no one else has faced before, and you'll Google an answer, and no one will have asked it, or at least not that Google has indexed. And technically, that is really challenging. And as Con pointed out at the beginning, don't be afraid to throw away code. I can't emphasize that enough. We threw away we threw away code, we threw away projects, we threw away ideas, we threw away the architecture of Flow. The quite famous now multi-node architecture has gone from 2 to 3 to 5 to 4, back to 5 nodes over, and it's still evolving in many ways. And yeah, just like don't be afraid to change when you have more information, more inputs. The most that is sort of my answer also to the most technically challenging thing, but most mentally challenging for me is actually still true today, and it is the challenge of pitching people on why this stuff matters, why Web3 is the direction that the internet is going. Most of the time, the people that you talk to about this, or the people that I talk to about this, are like, that sounds really nice, and they nod politely, and they have no idea what you're talking about. And it is really tough. It's tough working in this space. If you haven't faced this already, you will. It's tough working in a space that is a little ahead of its time. It's a little early. You know, we are all still by nature early adopters. And definitely there's like the social cost of people being like, you're crazy, you're totally crazy. And that is tough. It weighs on you to have people constantly not socially validate, right? Because so much of the work we do, so much of the time we spend, so much of our career development is like, well, will other people be excited about this? Will they be into it? Are they gonna like it? Are other people gonna wanna be my friend because I'm doing this? And it is definitely like a mental challenge to come over not getting that social validation from, I mean, in some cases you do, you know, definitely there have been projects here that have garnered lots of social validation on Flow, but working in this space isn't always one of them. So that has been a very big challenge for me. And if it's something you're facing, you're not alone. Okay, second question. This one gets tougher. What is the most underutilized or underappreciated aspect of this technology, Web3, Flow, public blockchains, we can make it that broad, and what do you want to see people do with that? That most underutilized, underappreciated aspect.
You want me to go first?
Yes.
I'll go first. I think it's the like the autonomous code part of it. The fact that, and this is something that it wasn't until after we launched CryptoKitties that it really dawned on me that we had created a thing that would outlive us. And I think that people with the title engineer, right? You know, people building bridges, people building buildings, people building roads, like that's something that happens to them quite often. But people building software very rarely have that feeling that the thing that they're building is going to outlive them. It is software tends to be very ephemeral. And smart contracts and applications built on smart contracts have the ability to be permanent in a way that software never has been before, because they don't depend on any company or individual or particular server in order to keep operating an operating system, all of that stuff that might be ephemeral, because they're built on a system that's designed to be autonomous and continuous. And like, what does that mean exactly? Like, what are all the things we can do with permanent autonomous software? I don't know exactly, but I think that once people really start to appreciate that and the value that can bring, and how different that is from what we're used to in software, and it always being out of date, it always being incompatible, it always going obsolete, and I think it can very much change our relationship with digital technology.
Definitely. And the example that you just gave around like civil engineers is such an astute one, because it really does give you this ability to build basically a software city. Like you start to get that reliability that you get with public physical infrastructure that is designed to be maintained by a group of people who are like, yes, we all agree that we need roads, and the next generation of people is going to make sure that roads are maintained. And yeah, we get software that starts to look, and this is maybe where the term metaverse comes from, it starts to look a lot more like a civil society where things work together seamlessly and interoperably the way that you expect. Totally agree. All right, let's start at this side this time. Who wants to tell us about the most underappreciated aspect of this tech, in their opinion?
I was literally gonna say exactly that.
That's why you go first, Beth.
I always kind of never really quite got the blockchain part during CryptoKitties, gotta be honest. But then at one point, Deed explained exactly what he just described, and it clicked to me. I was like, this is amazing. This is like the selling point that, I don't know, there are all these companies that at some point seemed to be, never going away, and eventually they did. Don't know if who remembers MySpace. They were, infallible, and they went away, and all the data with it went away. And I think that was for me like that aha moment where I thought like, yeah, that's just amazing. Like, even if these companies go away, like my data that I have like will not go away. It will live, and I can keep using it as long as I pay for it. And then the second part is probably the composability, interoperability, sort of like, wow, the shared computer where all these applications live together, especially in an environment that we live today where you have all of these walled gardens, like you look at Facebook and Twitter and like Reddit now recently shutting down their APIs to third-party developers. That's not a world I want to live in, so it's quite cool that we have this platform, and I want to see more applications making good use of that.
You stole composability and interoperability from me, Bastian. So I'll go with my backup. I think I'll get specific to Flow. I think the most underutilized feature, well, one of the most underutilized features are Flow's transaction model. I think Bastian did a great job at designing it, and I think what we need to do in the near and long term is make better use of it. And I think it's wonderful, right? This idea that as a developer you get this sort of closure that you can play around with and interact with any number of different smart contracts to do new and novel things. I think that's a wonderful feature. Yeah, transaction model.
All right. So it has been already said multiple times. I still think it's sort of maybe worthwhile repeating, is that when many people think about blockchains, for them it's just sort of a value store, right? The ledger you write things into, but a ledger doesn't do any computation. Blockchains by now, and Flow in particular, have evolved to be a computer, right? It's not something, or of course you can store stuff on a computer, but the important feature is also that you can run algorithms on the computer. Those algorithms can interact. And that's sort of, I think, one of the main evolutionary steps blockchain has taken over the last 5 years, is to not only act as a value store, but actually do a strong amount of computation. And particularly Flow has been designed from beginning to end to be a computer. The data storage is just sort of a necessary piece to the entire pie. But it's computation, and it's almost unlimited computation. It's not as fast as a CPU in a server, or well, probably it is as fast as a CPU in a single server, but like Flow's ability to scale this computation beyond what any individual server can handle, the amount of data any individual server can ingest. I think this is a paradigm shift that you can by now think about. Maybe not today, but maybe in 10 years, running something like ChatGPT on the blockchain, right? You have the computational power to do that, and Flow is designed to do that in an economically and also environmentally sane way. I mean, look around you, right? We're on track to 2.3 degrees climate warming, right? And we just can't afford to like just waste tons amount of energy. Flow is one of the most energy efficient blockchains, right? So if you want to run any computation on a blockchain, right? The question is not only can the blockchain do it, but also how much energy and resources is that blockchain going to burn for your computation, right? Because our planet is going to sort of see the bill for that. And that's a very, very, I think, important and greatly underappreciated feature of Flow, is its ability to do sustainable, energy efficient computation, which is highly resilient to malicious actors, but doesn't waste like a factor of 1,000 of energy as a server would in a data center. For us, it's only a factor of 100. That is still like, yeah, it's a factor of 100, but it's much better than many other systems will. And our factor does not increase with computation load. So that's also the scalability behind it. Yeah, that's sort of my more than 10 cents, $20.
It was worth far more than that, Alex. To take it a different direction, I think the most unappreciated aspect of this tech is really the user or the person's ability to own their data. Your data online is the single most valuable asset that you have based on the amount of revenue that other people make off of it. I don't have the numbers to support that. I would look them up if I was the kind of person who did that. And I would encourage anybody else to, and send them to me, and then you can audit this statement. But your data is so, so valuable. What you interact with online, who you interact with, your social graph, the content that you put out, especially your content, which is your data, is so valuable. It is the lifeblood of social platforms. It's the lifeblood of social networks. And we just give it away for free. We totally give it away for free right now. And I think that right now, it's maybe not so much of an issue because we're still deriving a lot of benefit from that, but there will certainly become a time where thinking about data ownership, data privacy, data safety, security, really, and like that's what sort of the resource model that Cadence is making possible, and the work Bastion is doing, will be so important to the future of how these systems evolve. We haven't yet seen software or these social networks evolve from the age of, we have some kids in the audience today, from their accounts, moving away from being accounts that their parents manage to their own independent accounts. This idea that your data, exists with you from infancy to adulthood, and that your ownership of it changes over time is also new, and we don't have systems to manage that. We don't have good tools, we don't have good platforms, and I think there is definitely a really special place for the world of Web3 to support this transition to realizing data as a really valuable, tangible asset that you hold as an individual, and you should continue to hold. And the account model of Flow really holds central this idea that your data is yours, and the data you own is yours, and what it gives you access to is a right that only you hold. And that's sort of the basic underpinnings of a lot of the protocols of the internet, but we of course don't talk about it that way because right now the companies that are controlling your data are at sort of the top of that conversation, and I think this tech really gives the opportunity for people to be at the front of that conversation, for the tech to serve them and their rights and their preferences, more importantly, more than anything else. And that will be a really interesting dawn of social networks to see in the world of Web3, I think, and Flow is so uniquely positioned to solve it because of how the account model works and how your data and your ownership over data is treated.
Okay. To me, I think I agree a lot with Alex about the value stores and how to decentralize the computations on top of this value store. I want to mention one of the computation, which is to get the randomness of it. I think when we are building the CryptoKitties, one challenge is to see how to randomly generate the kitty genes. And we were so frustrated finding the safe and truly randomness source for generated genesis. Even though we ended up developing a solution to it, we were not 100% happy with the solution. And when we are building flows, we put a lot of thinking and effort on thinking about how to create a safe random source for it that allows transparent computation and open and also allows a fair computation on a generation of the random source on it. And when Alex presents the solution that for generating the random source, I was so impressed and excited about it. So I think Alex is going to share the details on it soon. But I'm very happy that so we have Flow has such a great solution for the randomness. It would allow a lot of innovation on the computation on these values that stores on blockchain, especially this computation is done in a decentralized manner.
I don't know how undervalued this is, since I think the openness of a blockchain is often, one of the main talking points on why to move to something like a blockchain. But for me, I think one of the aspects that kind of clicked a little later in my time in Web3 was just kind of the concept of evolving past open source. So open source code, on GitHub has been something that's been great for kind of just the general developer community, right? But something like a blockchain actually takes that even to the next level. So not only open source, but open runtime. Not only do you see where the code kind of comes from. You literally see it as it's being run, on the blockchain. And that kind of clicked that this is like one step even beyond open source. I think doesn't quite get talked about enough in terms of like the openness of the blockchain. So you can obviously see all of the actions and transactions, etc., on a blockchain, and that's what people often bring attention to. But even the code aspect and its benefit for like developers and composability, etc., I think is something that's very interesting, and I think probably could get a little bit more attention for the most part.
Yeah, reliable public APIs. That is huge. Excellent, excellent. This next question is an industry-specific application of that. So what do you think is the most significant opportunity in Web3 for this tech to uniquely solve? So is there an industry or an area that or an application that you're like, oh man, if that thing just had Web3, it'd be so sick? And I'm looking this way because we preceded a little bit of this. Jeff, come on, Jeff, take it. You got this.
Okay. Oh no. So that has been going on in my head recently. It sounds insane if you first hear it. So it's essentially, in a nutshell, blockchain for smart home or anyway digital devices, right? You like most people's reactions like that's insane. Why would you do that? Why would you want to run that on a blockchain? Well, but think about it, right? So we're all moving to renewable energy sort of power grid, where energy is just not being produced on demand. It's being just available when nature provides us with that energy, right? So instead of adjusting our energy production to the demand, we're now suddenly in a scenario where we have to adjust demand to production, right? So suddenly your car, your dishwasher, your washing machine, they can't just run any time when you press a button. They ideally should be running at a time where there's enough energy available, right? It's early morning, sun shines, a lot of wind, great. And so that's for us a paradigm shift. We suddenly have to move away from this problem of I go to one washing machine, I load it up, press a button and it runs. No, I mean, most likely when you press your button on the washing machine, you don't need the laundry right away, right? For you, it's totally fine to be like, I'm cool if that laundry is washed by tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. I can hang it up before I go to work. So you need some sort of intelligence there, which tracks energy supply, tracks maybe your cost preferences, right? If you're just at home hanging out, maybe your laundry can sit another day. If you're going on a business trip, maybe you really need it, right? And you're like, I'm totally happy to pay $1 more for my load of laundry being washed. But I really need it by that time. So, there's a certain sort of interaction and control aspect there. And we have that already with smart home, right? When does my heating come on? But it will become a lot more sort of severe when we have cars wanting to charge. And also your car, it doesn't need to charge right away, right? You probably, when you come home in the evening, it's fine if it's charged, and the next morning, maybe only up to 50%. And so this interaction is this active control aspect that has to run somewhere, right? That's executed code running somewhere. Where do you want that code to run? Like, how about an Amazon data center, right? Where Amazon is like, oh, power production is dropping, energy demand is rising. What do we do? Do we shut down our data center, or do we just maybe reduce the temperature of all the households, right? Which do their temperature control through us? Maybe we just drop all of them of half a degree. No one will notice, right? But like that already feels a little bit odd. They're gonna collect when you're home, when you run your dishwasher, when you turn your light on. That's stuff you do not want in individual private hands, right? That's something you want on a public infrastructure. This control of knowledge of things which matter to your life in the real world, right? And that's where I think blockchain can really kill it. Not any blockchain, but you need a computationally strong blockchain. You need a blockchain which is computationally strong enough to run those algorithms in a privacy-preserving manner. There's tech for that. You can do that, but it's computationally expensive. And so that's, I think, where Flow really can sort of hit a demand in 5 years and 10 years, when that becomes really relevant as a sort of control infrastructure, essentially a back end. Right? It's not a back end running on proprietary compute hardware. It's a back end running on public infrastructure or open infrastructure. The data is encrypted. You can decide what control algorithm you want to run, how it's going to look. You can compose those control algorithms however you want to do. You see your neighbor having, oh, that you know, Jeff. I know we kind of have the same lifestyle. The way how you control your washing machine. What app is that? Oh, it's the app from the guy next door. Maybe I'm going to download that too, right? And not Amazon is going to dictate what, or Apple, or whichever other big company is going to dictate when you're going to run your washing machine, and you can only say, I want to do it this way, or I have to invent your own solution. So yeah, it's a little bit sort of far out, but that's what has been really driving a lot of my sauce recently. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. I love well, that was a great example, because it really painted a picture. It's like, how does the world look when your home is run totally differently? So thank you, Alex. That was a great answer. Does anybody else on this side have any thoughts? This side?
I have one. It's a little generic, but I feel like for just Web3 in general, the next thing I'm looking for is just a real unified like identity system. Because right now, like there's a couple attempts of that, obviously, in the Web2 space, right? Like for corporate stuff is Okta, for personal stuff it's Gmail or Google, your Google logins. But I think overall, like a more unified kind of identity online just makes sense on the blockchain, right? Like the idea that the information that you would want to put on and to be not really necessarily owned by any one corporation, but allows you to kind of access and provide the identity that you want to present to kind of any interactions you want to make on the internet. Still looking for that. Tired of signing up for stuff. So hopefully one day that becomes true.
Cool. Yeah, I have some ideas that related to the transparency and the randomness. We probably all have the experience when we go to a website or go to some popular product. People will say, oh, if you buy this product, they have this promotion. If you buy this product, the first 10 users will get, I don't know, maybe $10 or something, or even get a car, right? You get excited, you go to buy that car, you go buy that product, but you never get the $10 or you never get the car at all. Why? Because it's their promotion, it's their strategy, right? You never see behind the scene how they do it. But if this was transparent, if they did put this car or $10 on chain, right? And if they did take a draw from all the users that has bought their product and committed to distribute it, like randomly pick the user out of these many users that bought their product and distribute the price, and user will be excited, right? This is really your commit to give away your your price to the users. I think this is never done transparently in the past, but with blockchain, this would be possible.
Excellent, excellent. Do you have one that you want to? You don't have to.
Well, I was talking to my wife the other night, and I told her I had one of those epiphany moments where the internet gave me something that I never knew I needed, but now that I know it exists, I desperately have to have it in my life. And it's a YouTube channel called Ryan Hall Y'all. And Ryan Hall is an amateur meteorologist, and he does weather reports that are like straight out of like a Mountain Dew ad. Like they're like he comes out and he is just like incredibly high energy, and he's like, this week is going to be the craziest world in weather, everybody. We're going to have a death zone. And then he explains that the death zone is a region through the Midwest that's going to disrupt storms, kill the storms before they can form. And what he's saying is that the weather's going to be really calm this week, but it's a death zone. So why am I telling that story? Well, because it's funny. But the other reason I'm telling that story is that one of the things we've seen with platforms like YouTube or Twitter and all of this open publishing infrastructure is that when you lower the barrier to creation, people create things that would have never worked in a world where there was like where there were central requirements, right? Like no company, not even MTV, would do a weather forecast like that. But Ryan Hall does it every couple of days on YouTube, and he has hundreds of thousands of people that watch that thing. And now I'm one of them. And I think that, so this isn't a specific like, hey, this is what the Web3 is going to do, or hey, here's a particular application. But when Leo was talking about the randomness and your reaction might be, well, why would some little vendor use on-chain randomness, which is this like incredibly complex thing that multiple computer science researchers had to pore over in order to make work. Why would they use that for their silly little giveaway? Because it's accessible. Why would somebody use the power of streaming video over the internet to make weather reports that look like music videos? Because once we've solved that problem, everybody can use it for whatever they find interesting. And so I think that a lot of these examples, or the examples that we're given here, what they have in common is it's about lowering the barrier to accessing something that itself is very complex, but once it exists and has been built, anybody can access it and use it in ways that might almost seem absurd, but which, if somebody out there finds it valuable and useful, is going to create value for those people, and that gets me really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. That thread, I'm so glad you went first, but it's a similar thread that I was going to pull on, which is that there's, just a much lower barrier to entry, and the ability to enforce the payment of the original person, or any person who that contributed to the value flow of that is possible now. And so that's especially interesting in content creation. When content creators are like this crazy Mountain Dew weatherman, are able to create content and then have it be shared all around the world and actually see some of that revenue. Like, we are absolutely seeing people whose full-time days are spent creating content, and they're definitely making some income from it, but the extent to which that happens based on the content or the platform certainly varies. And content is the lifeblood of the internet, and so the ability for people to both create new interesting things, riff on other people's things, and co-create on top of things that they maybe otherwise wouldn't have, or use washing machine algorithms they maybe wouldn't have otherwise had access to, is a huge, seemingly trivial because we're using these funny examples, but it's pretty significant. That's a lot of computational resource, a lot of brain power that's now a shared resource for people. And the people who are writing washing machine algorithms can now get a small fee every time their neighbor decides to use it, and they refer their next neighbor to using it, and their next neighbor. And that democratized open software is definitely a really, really cool part of this. And I think content creators are in a right position to benefit a lot from it, because they are actively creating something that we click on all the time, and it's generating value for the platforms that we're spending time on. All right, the last ones are rapid fire. So keep it quick if you can, because we only have 5 minutes. I have 2 questions for you. We'll start with the first one. The moment that you knew the world needed flow, / why you're here. So why do you think the world needs flow, or why is it important to you that flow exists, and why do you spend your time working on it? I mean, I guess I should start this way this time, because it kept going that way.
So I'm lucky I get to go first, because I feel like this might be repeated. But during our time with CryptoKitties, there was about a week a time where Ethereum was basically brought to a halt just from usage. And a lot of people were very mad at us because we just clogged up the one of the most used blockchains at that time with digital cats. So I feel like that was like an obvious moment, I think, for a lot of people in terms of like the scalability at that time. And that just something else was needed, I think. So that's definitely the one for me.
Yeah, I think the fact that at the moment when we build Flow, the existing blockchain like Bitcoin and Ethereum were all running on proof of work, using so much natural resource was a stress to me. I think we must build like a different consensus algorithm, not as using as many resource. So we have this proof of stake consensus algorithm built. I think this is what first thing that the world need Flow for. We need a decentralized blockchain that is not running on proof of work, but instead a proof of stake. Yeah, and when we have built this, I think I think I'm excited to build this platform that allows a lot of innovations building on those computations on those values. Yeah, that makes me excited and committed to building on Flow.
Excellent. We don't have to go in order. Whoever's ready to go next.
Go ahead, Bastian.
So CryptoKitties, I had no clue what it was, and I heard there was a smart contract or something. Looked at it, and I was like, "What in the world is this?" I, was working on mobile applications at the time, like you write maybe web front end in JavaScript, and you write maybe like a mobile app in Swift, and it's all like beautiful, and you write your business logic, and everything is easy to implement. It's still a lot of work, but and then you look at Solidity, and I was like, I have no clue what this means. This is just like, what is all this like noise I have to worry about? So like the first thing is like realizing like, oh, it would be really nice to be able to just use the same language that I'm used to, like a high level language where I can express my business logic. Just want to build a game, right? That's all I want to do. I don't want to care about memory management and whatnot. And then even taking it further, like sort of, wow, like it's so inadequate for all the needs. I need to control like access. I want to give Jeff access to it. But it's like the super convoluted code that hopefully is secure, like, maybe someone will review it and hopefully it's secure. That was really scary. Sort of like intimidatingly complex and scary, and just hopefully, building something that's building or making it possible to build like everywhere else that we're used to, I think.
Yeah, so like any developer in Web3, I have hundreds of crypto wallets installed on my computer. Like so many that Chrome like yells at me every time I add a new one. It's bad. But I remember 4 years ago, I was working on CryptoKitties, and at the time there was Dapper Wallet Ethereum, which was a Chrome extension, and we also had MetaMask support on CryptoKitties as well. And I was so tired of having to go into my Chrome settings and disable MetaMask to use Dapper Wallet Ethereum, and then do vice versa when I wanted to switch wallets. So I sat down and I developed this feature where it was like a toggle on the website, which would let you switch between MetaMask or Dapper Wallet. And of course, that was a feature that was not possible with Web3.js in Ethereum. And I made a few PRs to the MetaMask repo, and they were rejected. And I remember sitting down and saying, like, wouldn't it be great if we could reinvent Web3.js for Flow? And fortunately, I was given the opportunity to do just that. And that's when I realized we needed Flow. Yeah.
I love that answer was after it had been built, because sometimes that is what happens. Sometimes you don't know what you need until you have it, and then you see it and you're like, oh, I really needed that. Alex, do you have one?
Let's see, I don't know if I have a short answer.
Well, we have 30 seconds left, and I have another question, so you have 15 words.
Okay. Flow is gonna contribute to better understanding this technology. So it's a purely scientific aspect, right? We're gonna learn something. That's great. That's why I'm here. I'm always learning stuff every day with all the challenges in Flow. That's, I think, it. And even, beyond any blockchain, I think this technology has sort of led to so much evolution of knowledge that even if it's not in blockchain, that knowledge will come around and be helpful for the human race in 10, 15, 20, 50 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly. There's underpinnings of global coordination and just like agreeing on security standards that is going to be super powerful regardless of how we apply it totally. I knew we needed Flow when the Kittyverse came to be, I think. That was wholly new. That was something that wasn't happening on Ethereum before CryptoKitties launched. That was something that none of us expected from launching CryptoKitties. People started building stuff on top of it, and they were being kind of hamstrung by what was possible with Ethereum, but there was this very clear need, desire, propensity for people to add to things, and it goes back to what Deet was talking about around software that exists forever. Because CryptoKitties was going to exist forever, because we had taken away the business risk of this IP that people cared about going away, and there was this really easy way for people to interface with it, that was a total game changer. And we saw people build things that they never would have otherwise built, and that was coming from the context of, and I didn't work personally on ZenHub, but Axiom Zen, the office that we're in now, and the venture studio that I met Deet at, ZenHub was an extension, and it was a great product. People loved it, they paid for it, but fundamentally it was an extension, and that was a huge risk that we were constantly talking about in the product room. Like I can't name the number of times we sat down and we're like, well, but GitHub, if GitHub turns off their relationship with us, this whole product goes south, and that really was so tough for the future of that business. Like, it was a great product, people paid for it, great team, all the boxes were checked, but fundamentally they had platform risk. And we totally took that away by building on a public blockchain. CryptoKitties let people build on it without ever contemplating the business risk. And the result was 10x what we ever could have built easily. People built stuff that we never would have had the resources for. They added functionality we wouldn't have had. And that wholly new thing that was so much more complex was just like so clearly a paradigm shift. Like, that wholly new thing, that change in mindset about like, oh my God, we can collaborate instead of compete. There was no platform that was designed for that, and it certainly wasn't designed for it to be fairly accessible to all at the outset. Like, even back in 2017, it was clear that centralizing forces were at play in decentralized platforms, and we needed a truly decentralized answer where decentralization was baked in, and Flow was really designed for that. So for me, it was seeing everything that evolved out of CryptoKitties and the Kittyverse, and I'm sorry because I probably took your answer, and we've talked about this so many times.
Well, I'll go from the other end, because I'm constantly reaffirmed working on various things that Flow needs to exist. And so let me tell you about the most recent time that I looked at something that we were doing and was like, thank God Flow exists. And it was earlier this week. So one of our engineers, Naveed, and I had a conversation with a game developer, and they were talking about putting NFTs on chain, like NFTs in their game, and having the data on chain. We're like, you can do more than that. Like, you can actually put game logic on chain, not real-time game logic like people moving around the world, but they were talking about having a farming aspect to their game. And so when Naveed and I got off the call with them, I said to Naveed, do you think you could build a smart contract where there was a farm that has some fields and you can plant strawberries, and then a farmer comes in and it harvests the strawberries, and he did it in like a couple of days, and it's the code is just so obvious and clear, and it just makes sense to look at. Have you had a chance to look at it yet, Bastian? You should look at it. It's wild, right? Like, it's cool. It's cool. And when I think about doing that in Solidity, when I think about doing that, heck, in any other programming language, it's just it's impossible to imagine. And yet, when it's expressed in Cadence, it's expressed so naturally, and it's secure by default. And it's really, really magical to me that that is possible. And, you know, for all of these use cases that we talk about, like, wouldn't it be great if? Well, it's only going to be great if we figure out a way to manage that complexity. And I feel like between our account model, between FCL, between the fact that we're built on this like incredibly robust consensus system underneath, and then we have this amazing programming language on top, we really have all the pieces there. And so, yeah, and it happens it happens constantly that I'm convinced we need to build Flow.
Excellent, excellent. That's what I was hoping. That wasn't a plant, and I didn't know Deet was going to say that, but that was a great way to end it. Okay, last question. This is truly a rapid fire. Person or project or thing you took most inspiration from during the design, during your own personal design process of whatever component you were working on. Project, person, idea, inspiration.
Go, Bastian.
I think it would be Swift. They share a lot of mindset. I think they really get this idea of like, you know, getting everyone to program, even the high school student. Yeah, it's just really clean and took a lot of inspiration from it.
I'll give a sappy answer. Probably my old mentor, James Hunter, who I worked under for a very long time. He was a fantastic mentor, and I had the pleasure of learning a lot from that guy. So, yeah, took a lot from him.
Oh, that's a tough one. Maybe I dodge that question and just say mathematics, you know, because when you think about writing software, you usually don't think about like mathematics, right? But that's largely what blockchain is. You drive that to an extreme. For everything you have proofs, for everything you have sort of a rigorous way of arguing why that thing is secure and why it will always do the thing you want it to do. So yeah, fundamentally a property we actually desire in a lot of cases in our real world, right? And I think, yeah, that just sort of emphasizes that mindset.
Nice. I, in the design process, thought a lot about, we had so much covered technically that I found myself really trying to figure out how to champion this like globalness of the system. Like how are we gonna really intuitively make sure that everybody can use this? And so I took a lot of design thinking from airports, actually. And I didn't talk about that a lot. Yeah, Deet looks surprised because I don't think he would have known that, but I spent a lot of time thinking about just like the adversary model that you're in an airport. You go to an airport, you revoke all rights, basically. And so it was kind of the antithesis of an airport, but like you're in this place where you need complex things to happen and your stuff's with you and it's important that it's your stuff and nobody trusts you, right? Like you have to have all these papers and everybody wants to put you in jail at some point or they want to detain you, they want to deport you. Like it's a challenging situation. You need like a lot of, yeah, it's crazy, right? It's wild. But I thought a lot about not for inspiration, maybe anti-inspiration, about the experience of airports and how I wanted a global interaction to be not that. But you know, I guess the point is that a lot of those verifications are in place for a reason because you don't know what you're dealing with, and so it's like, how do you make it safe and comfortable? In my opinion, airports don't really address that, but it was a design, it was a tool. It was a good tool.
For me, it's really basic. It's Vitalik Buterin and Vlad Zamfir. In 2017 and 2018, they just wrote so much about what they wanted their blockchain to look like, what they wanted the future of Ethereum to look like. And a lot of the decisions, when I first read them, they seemed crazy. They seemed like unbelievably complex and like they were trying to solve problems that no one needed solved. But like doing all of that reading and thinking behind, you know, why they would go to so much trouble to create a system this complex to do something that at its core didn't feel like it needed to be that complex, but because that meant that the system was truly autonomous, right? What we call decentralized, that it was truly eternal, that no one could shut it down. That, yeah, I mean that was just such a mind opener for me, and to read all of their work on that and see how much time and effort they were putting into solving that problem really emphasized to me the value of solving that problem. And we ended up putting a bunch of our own time and effort into that. But I think it's really worth it for what can be unlocked.
Yeah, for me, I took a lot of inspiration from the book called Building Data Intensive Application. In this book, the author put a lot of effort writing all the aspects that I used in the development of Flow, including the consistency, the transactions, the partitioning, and like encoding, and like LSM trees and these indexings. A lot of them are very useful and inspiring for me to understand the details and putting these thinking and the challenges, ideas into building Flow.
I'll probably follow in Jeff's footsteps in a corny answer, but I think I actually took a lot of inspiration from, I guess, the father of EIP 721. I feel like for me, like the creation of that and kind of just being able to almost like shape the way a whole tech space thinks, I think was very motivational for me, and especially generating like leading a new blockchain and kind of progressing past as a next step, beyond Ethereum. I think, took a lot of inspiration there.
Thank you, Con.
That was a beautiful note to end it on. All right, that concludes the formal questions section of the panel. Are there any audience questions that we shall entertain? We are running a little behind schedule, so if not, I'm going to really quickly wrap us up. Excellent. All right. Thank you so much to everybody who participated remotely, everybody who's here in person. So wonderful to have you all. We are so grateful that you're here, part of making Flow the future of Web3. Thank you for your time, and we'll be doing more of these. So please join me in giving a hand to these fine fellows who joined us for an evening of questions.
Thanks, everyone.